Yes. Yes. So now we have worked with JSON, where we have created our own JSON. We have made JSON just as a string, and then we have passed that and gotten the JavaScript objects. And you've probably been wondering, like, why is he keep talking about all this JSON and JSON, and like, what is the importance of this? It's weird, right? Okay, so look, if I go to this URL here, okay, this is a link to this website. Okay, this website is called api.opennotify.org/astros.json. So what does this look like to you guys? Yes. Yeah, what kind of object?
People.
Yeah, no.
It's JSON.
Exactly, it's JSON. This looks like JSON. Okay? Because we have a string of some object. It could also be an array, but we have some string. But this is on a website. This is on api.opennotify, blah blah blah, right? So how in the world can we get to use this data in our own application? So that's when the power suddenly comes in. Okay, so we want to now try to take this JSON here that is on this URL, and we want to use that JSON in our own application. So there is a way to do that, and it's called fetch, and it looks like this. Let's do this with the planets, because you've also seen that before. So here we have one called raw.githubusercontent.com/blah blah 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 blah. Okay, so what does this look like to you? Exactly, it's JSON. Yes, it also says here planets.json. It doesn't always do that. Okay, but this is JSON. So we want to take this JSON from this URL into our own application. How can we do that? So there's a function in JavaScript called fetch. Fetch takes a URL, fetch JavaScript. Fetch provide an interface for fetching resources. So resources is like, for example, a JSON file. It's some data. If we go down here, there should be an example. Let's just see here. There's one called using fetch here. So we call fetch on a URL here. Okay. So in this example, what we're doing right now, we want to get the planets, the moons of the different planets that we worked with before, but not from us creating the JSON, but from us asking a server in the cloud, right? In a website, we ask, hey, give us this data. And then that server will respond with exactly what we are seeing here, a JSON file. Okay, so we say fetch this URL. And then this part you don't have to think about that much for now, but it's just saying the text that you got from here, pass it into JSON. You know how we before said JSON.pass? That is kind of the same thing that is happening here. We are saying to JavaScript, hey JavaScript, actually the data that I got from this website, I want it out as JSON. I want it decoded. So that means what we have here is a working JavaScript object. Okay, so I have logged out this planets. So let's try and see what that contains. So here, line 67, I'll just not log out anything else. So it's a bit more simple, like this. Okay, so we have exactly the same object as before. Okay, we have the object, it has a key description, it has planets, but the way we have gotten it is like the smart thing. We have actually gotten it off a URL. Okay,
Yeah.
so if we want to do anything with this planets, okay, it should be in here. Here is where you write your code. Okay, because if you start writing your code here and say, well, I wanna log out planets dot description. What is the problem with that?
Should be undefined
Yes, why?
because planets is inside that function.
Exactly. Planets is only defined within this function here. Okay, it is not defined out here. So that means you have to write code inside of here that uses the planets. Or you could create a function that may be render planets, okay, and you pass that the planets, okay, and then you call it up here. So now we are kind of working with planets here, no problem. But just make sure that you have to pass it into a function. Okay, so you shouldn't think about too much what this does. You should just focus on how you use it. So you should copy this code, and I have also added it here. So you should just take this, copy, paste it into your code, and right here, this is where you want to be writing your code. Okay, this is where you have the data that was returned from this URL. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? Any questions? Yeah?
That's for a specific example, like which is on api.opennotify.org.
Yes.
For example, if you want to get some JSON file, first of all, does every site has a
Nope.
JSON file?
No.
So it's on individuals thinking if they want to share their data with someone else.
Exactly. Yes.
For example, if you are looking to get some data from one airline
Yes.
and compare it with the data from another airline,
Yes.
how can we find, do they have any JSON or?
So then I would go airline web API, something like that. And we're going to be talking about API in just a second. 178 travel APIs. And then there's like lots of different APIs here, but we'll get to that in a second. Don't focus too much on that right now, because now I want you to do an exercise where use this API to fetch how many astronauts are currently in space. So this API is really cool, okay? It returns how many astronauts are in space right now, all the time. It's always updated, right? So we, with our very simple JavaScript, can create a website that shows how many astronauts are in space right now. I think that's pretty cool.
Wait, she's working to the JavaScript.
Yes.
No. Not good? You're just something's wrong in the URL. Wait, she's not defined.
Maybe I copied it wrongly. Oh, sorry. Boop, boop, boop. So is it this API? No, I can see there's at least some planets.json. So it should be this one here. I'll just post that in Slack. Okay, this is the URL you should fetch. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to use this API to fetch how many astronauts are currently in space. Okay? And then I want you to do this console.log the following using the data you got from the API. Okay? There are number of astronauts in space. So number of astronauts, it's something you should write some code that gives how many astronauts are in space right now. They are colon, and then it should say astronaut name number 1, 2, 3, and the number of astronauts there are in space right now. Okay, so you should use this data that you got from the API to write that sentence. Okay, and instead of calling this, so right here, okay, this is also kind of important. This is planets.json I'm fetching here. Therefore, what I get from that API is planets. But what are you getting?
Astronauts.
Yes, you're getting astronauts in space, or astronauts, okay? Very important. So, with this URL, we are fetching planets, which is the JSON with the planets and how many moons they have, okay? Therefore, the data that we get from that API is called planets. But when we access the astronauts API, now we don't get planets anymore here. Astros. What does astros mean?
Astronauts.
Yes, but astros is. If I would, I really like to be as specific as possible. So I like, astronauts in space. Okay, there's nothing you can kind of go wrong. Astronauts is totally fine. It's just like a matter of presence.
It's not the file name that you're talking about.
No,
Okay.
that is very important. This represents the JSON that you got from the URL.
So in that you can use any variable,
Yes,
but you have to make it that way.
exactly. Because other programmers after you might come and they see Astros and they will be thinking, Astros, what is Astros? Maybe it's astronauts, but I don't know. It might refer to something else. Like, I'm not sure what it is.
Because
Yes, because
the other name was planet and you used planet, so I thought you
yeah, that does totally make sense. Yes, but because the data that we get here, okay, will be this JSON, but converted into a JavaScript object.
So I fetch your comments here, but in the VS Code fetch as not defined. It's interesting.
It's not defined.
Defined. I have checked.
Will you save this?
Do you run it through Node?
I think yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. And here we go. Yeah. Yes, that's because you're running through Node. Run it through the browser. Yeah. So now you have to run it through the browser. So you have to create an index.html file, reference that JavaScript file, and then you have it. And that's because the fetch function is the browser that gives that to JavaScript. So if we use Node, we can still have fetch, but then we ourselves need to install that and we need to import it, and then it's a bit more tricky. So create an index.html file and reference the JavaScript in there.